Mr. Hadayi, this store was approved to help people buy groceries.
People came here because it was nearby. Most of them knew me.
This is Samir Haddad, a corner store owner in Cleveland who processed SNAP benefits for 3 years straight. Once is a mistake. Twice is suspicious. He did this hundreds of times, and the transaction records logged every single one.
The complaint says the amount of benefits processed didn't match what the store was selling.
Sometimes the numbers start looking different from the room you're standing in.
He would not get the chance to finish the sentence. Within 72 hours, federal agents would seize the EBT terminal, the back office laptop, 3 years of register tapes, and a handwritten ledger he had stuffed behind a case of expired baby formula. $900,000. 3 years. A store the size of a 2-car garage that somehow processed more food assistance benefits than supermarkets 10 times its size. The shelves were nearly empty. The cooler hummed with expired milk. And the program that was supposed to feed hungry kids in Cleveland had been turned, one swipe at a time, into a discount cash machine for the man behind the counter. Before we go any further, I have to ask you something. Have you ever walked into a corner store and wondered how a shop with empty shelves stays open year after year? Drop your answer in the comments, because this case is going to change how you look at every one of them. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. We cover the cases that mainstream news refuses to touch every single week. Samir Haddad was born in 1981 in a small mountain village outside Tripoli in northern Lebanon. His father was a baker who ran a one-room shop with a clay oven that had been in the family since before the Civil War. His mother kept the books in a cloth-bound notebook with prices written in 3 different colors of ink. By the time Samir was 8 years old, he could weigh flour on a hand scale and make change for a 100 lira note without looking at the coins. The war years had ended, but the economy had not recovered. The bakery survived because his father refused to raise prices on the families he had known his entire life. Samir watched his father give bread away on credit that everyone knew would never be repaid. He watched his mother count the difference in the cloth ledger and not say a word. That memory would matter later, when prosecutors tried to explain who Samir Haddad was. They would describe a calculating fraudster. His family would describe a boy who grew up watching food given away for free. In 1998, when Samir was 17, his uncle, on his mother's side, sponsored the family's immigration to the United States. They settled in Dearborn, Michigan, in a neighborhood that locals called Little Beirut, where the bakeries on Warren Avenue sold the same za'atar bread he had grown up with. His uncle owned a small grocery on Schaefer Road, and Samir worked there 40 hours a week while finishing high school at Fordson. He stocked shelves, manned the register, learned to talk to customers in 3 languages, and saved every paycheck. His evaluations from his uncle, which would later be entered into the federal record as character evidence, described a young man who was, quote, hardworking, respectful, eager to learn, and unusually good with elderly customers. He worked the morning shift before school, the afternoon shift after, and the closing shift on weekends. He turned 21 with $11,000 in a credit union savings account and a vague plan to open his own store someday. That plan took shape in 2003, when a family friend from Cleveland told him about a corner market for sale on the east side of the city, a neighborhood called Slavic Village. The owner was retiring. The price was $84,000 for the business, the inventory, and a 5-year lease on the building. Samir took out a loan from his uncle, a second loan from a cousin in Detroit, drained his savings, and signed the papers on a humid August morning. He was 22 years old. The store was called Cedar Market. He kept the name because it had been there for 15 years, and the regulars knew it. The first thing he did was repaint the front sign in bright red and green, the colors of the Lebanese flag he had grown up under, though he never said that out loud to the customers. In 2005, he married Rana, the daughter of a Lebanese family from Akron who attended the same Maronite church his cousins went to. Rana was 20, studying nursing at Cuyahoga Community College. They lived in a 1-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner on Broadway Avenue and saved every dollar that did not go directly into the store. Their first child, a son named Khalil, was born in 2007, a daughter, Layla, in 2010, a second son, Rami, in 2013. By 2015, Samir had been running Cedar Market for 12 years. The store was modestly profitable, but never thriving. The neighborhood had gotten poorer, not richer. Customers paid in food stamps, then EBT cards, then SNAP benefits as the program evolved. He renewed his federal authorization to accept SNAP transactions every year. The forms went through his lawyer, a man named Tariq Mansour, who handled 36 small immigrant-owned shops across Northeast Ohio. For the first 10 years, Samir Haddad ran Cedar Market the way his father had run the bakery in Tripoli. He extended credit to people he knew were going to be late on rent. He kept a notebook of customers who were short $2 and would pay him next week. He let kids from the block stand by the candy display for 10 minutes without saying anything. The store made enough to feed his family and not much more. He paid his taxes on time. He filed his SNAP renewals on time. He kept the receipts in a shoebox under the register. And then something changed. The case file would eventually pinpoint it to the late summer of 2020. To understand what Samir Haddad did, you have to understand how SNAP actually works, because almost no one outside the system does. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program serves roughly 42 million Americans every month. The federal government, through the United States Department of Agriculture, loads benefits onto an electronic benefit transfer card, a piece of plastic that looks and works like a debit card. Recipients swipe the card at any authorized retailer, enter a 4-digit PIN, and the federal government pays the retailer for the eligible food the recipient bought: bread, milk, vegetables, meat, baby formula, cereal, anything you can eat that has not been prepared hot for immediate consumption. The authorization to accept SNAP transactions is not automatic. A retailer has to apply to the USDA's Food and Nutrition Service. The application asks about store size, inventory, hours, ownership, and the categories of food the store sells. The agency assigns the store to a tier based on what it actually stocks. A small corner market like Cedar Market is classified as a convenience store, the lowest tier, with the smallest expected transaction volumes. The rules are clear. Cashback is not allowed on SNAP transactions. Trading benefits for cash is a federal felony. Charging an EBT card for anything that is not eligible food is a federal felony. Splitting a single transaction into multiple smaller charges to evade detection is a federal felony. The enforcement system is, on paper, formidable. The USDA's Office of the Inspector General runs an analytics unit out of a federal building in Alexandria, Virginia, where investigators monitor SNAP transaction data from every authorized retailer in the country in close to real time. The system is called ALERT, the anti-fraud locator, using EBT retailer transactions. It looks for statistical anomalies, a store that processes too many round number transactions, a store whose average ticket size is too high for its inventory, a store whose transaction volume spikes on the days benefits are loaded, a store that runs the same card 3 times in 5 minutes. When ALERT flags a store, the file goes to a human investigator. The investigator pulls the store's transaction history, compares it against neighboring stores of similar size, and decides whether to refer the case for a field visit. A field visit means an undercover agent walks into the store, attempts to do something that should be illegal, and records what happens. For years, Cedar Market sat below the threshold. The transaction volume was small enough, the patterns boring enough, that the analytics system never flagged it. Samir Haddad knew, on some level, that the system existed. His attorney had warned him about it during the original authorization. But the warning had been theoretical, an abstract threat, the kind of thing that happens to other people. It would not stay abstract. The federal indictment would eventually pinpoint the first illegal transaction to September 14, 2020. The customer was a woman the case file would identify only by her initials, VB. She was a regular at Cedar Market. She had 3 children, 2 of them with asthma, and she lived 4 blocks from the store in a rented half of a duplex on East 65th Street. Her SNAP benefits loaded on the 14th of every month, and she usually spent half of them at Cedar Market within 24 hours. That September, VB had a problem. Her electric bill was past due. The utility company was threatening to cut service. She needed cash, not groceries, and she had $340 on her EBT card that she could not legally convert. The conversation, as reconstructed by federal investigators, was brief. VB: Samir, can you help me with something? I need cash. I'll lose the lights if I don't pay this week. Haddad: You want to leave the card. VB: 200. I'll give you the whole 340 if you can give me 200 cash. The markup was 41%. Samir Haddad keyed in a transaction for $340, marked it as miscellaneous grocery, opened the register, and counted out $200 in 20s. VB walked out with cash. The store walked out with $140 of federal money for groceries that had never left the shelves. No one had noticed. No one had checked. The transaction sat in a federal database in Alexandria, indistinguishable from the millions of legitimate transactions that passed through it that day. And Samir Haddad had crossed a line he had never even let himself imagine before. The second transaction came 11 days later. A different customer, same arrangement. The third came the following week. By the end of November 2020, Samir Haddad had run 16 cash-for-benefit exchanges through Cedar Market, netting just over $4,000 in pure profit on transactions where no actual food had been sold. The scheme escalated the way these schemes always escalate, slowly at first, then with mathematical confidence. By the spring of 2021, Samir had developed a method. He never offered the exchange. He waited for customers to ask. He kept the markup consistent, between 35 and 50%, depending on how desperate the customer seemed. He never wrote anything down. He never spoke about it on the phone. He never told his wife. He also began to refine the timing. He had read enough about the alert system to understand, at least in outline, what it was watching for. Round numbers were dangerous. Transactions that ended in U0 stood out in the data, so he started keying in odd amounts: $217.43, $308.91. He picked the numbers off the actual register tape from earlier in the day, copying the digits from real transactions to make his fake ones look organic. He also began to space the transactions across the day: 3 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2 in the early evening. He would not run 2 cash-for-benefit exchanges back to back. He would intersperse them with legitimate sales. A pack of gum here, a 2-liter Pepsi there. The store had to look like a store. The problem Samir Haddad could not solve, was the inventory. Cedar Market was a tiny store. The total retail value of everything on its shelves at any given moment was somewhere between $14,000 and $17,000. But by mid-2021, the store was reporting SNAP transaction volumes north of $40,000 a month. By 2022, north of $60,000. By 2023, north of $90,000. A store with a $16,000 inventory cannot legitimately move $90,000 in eligible food a month. The math is impossible. The shelves would have to be restocked twice a week, every week, and the supplier invoices would have to reflect it. They did not. Samir Haddad bought roughly $1,200 of wholesale food a week. He was reporting $19,000 in retail food sales a week. In his head, he kept a separate set of books: real food sales, cash-for-benefit transactions, the difference. He never wrote any of it down on a computer. Everything went into the green columnar notebook he kept in a locked drawer in the back office, the one behind the case of expired baby formula no one ever moved. The profits flowed out through a network he believed was untraceable. He cashed out at 3 different check-cashing storefronts on the east side, never more than $9,000 at a time, the threshold at which federal currency reporting requirements kick in. He paid down the mortgage on the family home. He bought a used Lincoln Navigator. He sent $4,000 a month to his elderly mother in Lebanon, who he had not been able to visit in 11 years. He paid for his oldest son's Catholic school tuition. and he started, slowly, to believe he had found a way through. The alert system did not flag Cedar Market because of any single transaction. It flagged the store because of a pattern that took the algorithm 18 months to build with statistical confidence. The analyst who pulled the file was a woman named Patricia Yelena Okafor, a senior data investigator with the USDA Office of the Inspector General's Mid-Atlantic Field Office. She had been reviewing flagged retailers for 9 years. Her caseload that month was 47 stores. Cedar Market was the third file in the stack. What she saw on her screen made her stop and rerun the query because she assumed she had pulled the wrong data set. Cedar Market's monthly SNAP redemption volume was running at 412% of the average for stores in its tier. Its average transaction size was 3 times the national mean for convenience stores. The percentage of its SNAP transactions involving perishable food, the stuff that requires actual refrigeration and actual inventory turnover, was under 3%. The national average was 38%. Patricia Okafor pulled the corresponding wholesale food supply records. Samir Haddad's distributor was a company called Cuyahoga Restaurant Supply, which delivered to Cedar Market every Wednesday. The total wholesale invoices for the previous 12 months added up to roughly $63,000. The store's reported SNAP-eligible retail food sales for the same period exceeded $980,000. The ratio was not just suspicious. It was, in her notes, quote, impossible without large-scale benefit trafficking. She wrote the referral memo on a Tuesday afternoon. The case was assigned to a field investigator named Marcus Whitfield, a former Cleveland police detective who had spent 6 years working federal financial fraud cases out of the Cleveland field office. Whitfield read the file, called a colleague at the FBI's Cleveland office, and pulled the next available undercover. We're heading into the trial now. If you want to know exactly how the system handled this, subscribe. We break down every detail, and the next case on this channel is going to make you angrier than this one. The undercover agent the FBI assigned to Cedar Market was a woman in her early 30s who would be identified in court filings only as Agent Diane Reyes. She had worked SNAP trafficking cases in 3 different states. She knew the script. On a cold Thursday in February of 2024, she walked into Cedar Market at 11:47 in the morning, carrying an EBT card that had been loaded with $500 in surveillance funds by the USDA. She wandered the aisles for 6 minutes. She picked up a single can of corn. She brought it to the counter. Samir Haddad rang up the can of corn. 89 cents. He looked at her, waiting. Reyes, I was wondering if you could help me. My cousin said you sometimes work with people. I need some cash. Haddad, how much you got on the card? Reyes, 500. Haddad, I can give you 3. The markup was 40%. He keyed in a transaction for $497.12. He opened the register and counted out $300 in 20s and 10s. The entire exchange took 94 seconds. It was recorded on a body-worn audio device the FBI had concealed in the pocket of Agent Reyes's coat. That was the first of 9 controlled transactions over the next 11 weeks. Each one was recorded. Each one followed the same pattern. The agent walked in with a small purchase. The agent asked for cash. Samir Haddad keyed in an inflated transaction, opened the register, and handed back the agreed-upon amount of bills. The markup ranged from 35 to 50%. By the end of April, the FBI had 9 separate felony violations on tape, each one captured in audio, video from a covert surveillance vehicle parked across the street, and the transaction record itself in the SNAP database. They also had something else. While Agent Reyes was working the front of the store, a second team of investigators was working the financial side. They pulled Cedar Market's bank records. They subpoenaed deposit slips from the 3 check-cashing storefronts where Samir was offloading his cash. They mapped the flow of money from federal benefits to the store's bank account, to the cash withdrawals to the personal expenditures. The full picture was staggering. Across the 38 months from September 2020 through April 2024, Cedar Market had processed approximately $904,000 in trafficked SNAP benefits. The store's actual food sales over that period had been less than $120,000. Roughly 88% of every dollar that flowed through the EBT terminal had been converted to cash and handed across the counter. Investigators executed a search warrant on Samir Haddad's home on the morning of May 14, 2024. They were specifically looking for the second set of books. They found it in the locked drawer behind the case of expired baby formula in the back office of Cedar Market. A green columnar notebook. 3 years of handwritten entries. Date. Customer initials. Card value. Cash paid. Margin retained. The ledger documented exactly 741 separate cash for benefit transactions, totaling almost exactly the figure the algorithm had estimated. It was the smoking gun, a handwritten confession in his own ink, locked in his own drawer, in his own store. There would be no plausible deniability. No, my employee must have done it. No, I didn't know defense. The man had kept his own confession in a notebook. They also found something else. $47,000 in cash, bundled in white bank straps, stuffed inside a cardboard box labeled olive oil on the top shelf of the back office storage closet. The agents waited for Samir Haddad to open the store on the morning of June 4th, 2024. He arrived at 6:38 a.m., the way he had arrived every morning for 21 years. Thermos of coffee, keys in his hand. He unlocked the security gate. He unlocked the front door. He walked to the back office to turn on the lights. 2 plainclothes agents stepped through the front door behind him. The lead agent identified himself. Agent Whitfield. Mr. Haddad, I'm Special Agent Marcus Whitfield with the USDA Office of the Inspector General. This is Special Agent Reyes with the FBI. We have a federal arrest warrant for you. Sir, I need you to put your hands on the counter. Haddad. What? What are you? I don't. Whitfield. Mr. Haddad, please put your hands on the counter. Haddad. I haven't done anything. I'm just opening the store. My kids, my wife, what is this? Reyes. Sir, we've been doing business with you since February. Do you remember a customer who paid you for cash on her EBT card 4 times since the winter? Haddad. I don't know what you're talking about. Whitfield. Mr. Haddad, we have you on audio and on video for 9 separate transactions. We have your handwritten ledger. We have your bank records. Sir, this is not the part where you talk your way out of it. This is the part where you put your hands on the counter so we can do this without your children seeing it on the news tonight. There was a pause, a long one, long enough that Agent Whitfield would later testify in a pre-trial hearing that he thought Haddad might run. He did not run. He put his hands flat on the counter. His shoulders dropped. He looked down at the EBT terminal, then up at the agents, then at the front window of the store he had bought when he was 22 years old. Haddad, I want to call my lawyer. Those were the last words he spoke that morning. He was handcuffed behind the counter of Cedar Market at 6:43 a.m. He was walked out the front door at 6:47. He was photographed and processed at the federal courthouse on East 9th Street by 8:30. He was arraigned at 1:15 in the afternoon. The federal indictment came down from a grand jury in the Northern District of Ohio on June 18, 2024. 23 counts. Count 1. Conspiracy to commit SNAP benefit trafficking in violation of 7 U.S.C. Section 2024b. Counts 2 through 10. 9 substantive counts of SNAP benefit trafficking, 1 for each of the controlled transactions documented by Agent Reyes. Counts 11 through 18. 8 counts of wire fraud in violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 1343. 1 for each fraudulent SNAP redemption batch submitted to the federal processor over the wire. Counts 19 through 22. 4 counts of money laundering in violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 1956, covering the structured cash withdrawals at the check cashing storefronts. Count 23. 1 count of structuring financial transactions to evade currency reporting requirements in violation of 31 U.S.C. Section 5324. Maximum exposure on the indictment, if every count ran consecutively at the statutory ceiling, was just over 190 years in federal prison. The realistic guideline range, after the probation office calculated his offense level and criminal history category, was projected at 46 to 57 months, roughly 4 to 5 years. The USDA disqualified Cedar Market from the SNAP program permanently on June 25, 2024, 7 days after the indictment. The disqualification was issued under 7 CFR Section 278. 6. The regulation that governs trafficking penalties. There would be no appeal. The store would never accept another EBT transaction. That same week, the store's wholesale supplier suspended deliveries pending payment of an outstanding invoice. The landlord on East 65th Street served Cedar Market with a notice of default on the commercial lease. By the second week of July, the store was closed. The red and green sign Samir Haddad had painted at 22 years old was still hanging over the locked door. The federal government also filed a separate civil forfeiture action against the family home, the Lincoln Navigator, and approximately $312,000 in assets that prosecutors alleged were the direct proceeds of the trafficking scheme. The civil case was put on hold pending the outcome of the criminal trial. Samir Haddad's defense attorney, a Cleveland federal defender named Joseph Mansour, filed a motion in late July seeking to suppress the contents of the green columnar notebook on the grounds that the search warrant had been overly broad. The motion was denied in a written opinion by United States Magistrate Judge Allison Crane on September 9, 2024. Judge Crane wrote that the warrant, quote, identified with particularity the locations to be searched and the items sought, and the notebook fell squarely within the scope. The case is currently set for trial in the Northern District of Ohio in the spring of next year. Prosecutors have indicated they remain open to a plea agreement. Defense counsel has indicated that conversations are ongoing. As of the date of this report, Samir Haddad is free on a $100,000 unsecured appearance bond, restricted to the Northern District of Ohio, subject to electronic location monitoring, and barred from any contact with witnesses or any participation in any federal nutrition program for the remainder of his life. The victims of his scheme will not be itemized in any court filing, because there is no name attached to the loss. The loss belongs to a program, to a system, to the 42 million people who use SNAP benefits every month to keep their kids fed, to the parent in Slavic Village who walked into Cedar Market needing groceries and walked out with a fraction of the cash because the man behind the counter saw an opportunity in her desperation. $900,000, 3 years, 741 transactions, each one written in his own hand in a notebook he kept locked in his own drawer. A program built to put dinner on a table at the end of a hard month, turned, by the man trusted to run it, into a discount cash machine. This case was infuriating. But the case on the right-hand side, what that one did to the people who trusted him, that one is on a completely different level. Click it now.